Do you want to know how to get a kid to stop sucking their thumb? You're not alone. This is a very common parenting issue that has to be dealt with in so many households. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principle of self-government. And in this video, we're talking about thumb sucking. In this video, we're going to talk about ways that you can calmly and gently instruct and correct your child related to thumb sucking without shaming them, and by hopefully motivating them to want to take ownership over this behavior themselves. You should know that I did have a couple of thumb suckers. So I've raised many children. Some of them were my own, some of them were not. The ones that were not my own came a little bit later in life when I was doing therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens, but I did raise 4 children of my own and am now a grandmother. I had some thumb suckers of my own biological children, and that was so nice when they were babies, when they were so little and they would just self-soothe themselves. Oh, it was great. In fact, I had one little baby that, starting at about 3 months old, she did not want to be held and cuddled and whatever before bed. So I thought, well, I guess I'll just put her in there. And she literally just rolled over, stuck her thumb in her mouth, and just went to sleep. And that was her go-to. Oh, that was the best nighttime routine that I had with any of my babies. So we love it sometimes when they're babies because it's very convenient. But what happens when they become toddlers and small children and they're still wanting to put that thumb in their mouth? So at that point, it's just a habit. It's not as much of a need. And we do have to understand the difference between habit and need, and sometimes even attention seeking. Sometimes children recognize that thumb sucking makes them feel little and small like a baby because they see babies doing that, and so they'll do it for attention seeking. And so we do have to recognize that. Sometimes when they notice that we see them as more of a baby, then we'll treat them more like a baby, and they have to take less responsibility when we do that. Even when they're young, they pick up on those cues through our tone and the way that we interact with them when they're doing certain actions. When they are thumb sucking, try to remember, like let's say you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old who's putting their thumb in their mouth. They're not a baby. Don't treat them like a baby. They don't need that soothing any longer. It is simply just a habit or a mechanism to try to feel younger and smaller because they like the feeling of being a baby. This can especially occur when a toddler suddenly has a new baby come to the home and they see that new little baby start to suck their thumb, and everyone's like, oh, that's so cute. They're sucking their thumb. And then all of a sudden the toddler's like, oh yeah, that's so cute. I want that attention. I want people to talk about me like that. I want them to cuddle me like that. They don't recognize that they're maybe experiencing a little bit of jealousy and doing attention seeking, but they are. And so you need to help affirm with that attention seeking child that it's actually okay to grow up. It's okay to get big, and we can still cuddle and snuggle and have fun times even when you're big. And there's more fun things around the corner because you're big, right? So helping them understand that it's not okay to act little, that we don't talk like babies, we don't suck thumbs like babies, that's a no answer. So these children's books here each teach one of the 4 basic skills of self-government that children need to know. If a person learns the skills in these 4 basic skills, which are following instructions, accepting a no answer in criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately, then that person will actually be able to take care of 99% of their behavioral problems. I know that sounds amazingly optimistic, but it's actually true, and I've put it to the test with even teens that have the most difficult behaviors. But even babies can learn these behaviors. This book here, Porter Earns a Quarter, teaches the skill accepting no answers. That's the skill that they need to learn about thumb sucking. It's a no answer. Any boundary line that you don't cross over is technically a no answer for you. I don't go and touch somebody else's face because there's a boundary line there. We only get so close to other people. But we can also establish that there's a boundary line for what we will and will not put into our mouths. And so we can just say, hey, we don't put other things in our mouths, or we don't put hands and fingers into our mouths. We don't put clothes into our mouths. You can tell them that those things are no answers and that they need to be able to do the steps to accepting a no answer. The steps to accepting a no answer are to look at the person or the situation, in this case, the thumb, to keep a calm face, voice, and body, to say, okay, to the no answer. So I'm not putting this in my mouth. This is a no. Okay. And I can also disagree appropriately, but it's hard to disagree appropriately with a thumb. So they might disagree appropriately with you if you're telling them the no at the time about the thumb. But then the final step is to drop the subject. This is the part they really need to understand. When I pull the thumb out, somebody says, you're sucking your thumb. That's a no answer. They pull it out. And then they go, okay, I'm not going to think about that anymore. Now, oftentimes to replace a habit, we do have to decide to do something else so that we can get our brain thinking about something else. And this can be very beneficial for trying to curb any habit, including thumb sucking. So what could you replace the habit of thumb sucking with? A lot of people think that the person needs soothing. If they were really tiny, that might be the case. But if they're like 2 years old, 3 years old, 4, they don't probably need that soothing anymore. It's just something they're in the habit of doing. It feels nice. And it's something to do with their mouth. It's kind of like eating. You know, some people will just like eat candies or gum or whatever just because they like to do something with their mouth. It makes them pass the time a little bit better. So what is something else that you do with your mouth? So maybe you talk, maybe you sing, maybe you recite poetry. There's a lot of things that you can do with your mouth. Maybe you blow bubbles with your lips like you know, that kind of thing. Now that could be a little annoying, but you could pick one of these things to say, whenever you think about sucking your thumb, maybe we blow bubbles instead, like, you know, that type of a thing. Or maybe we whistle a song, or we sing a little song. It's super darling for small children to be singing, right? That's not very annoying. So maybe you would help the child learn to sing a little song at the time. And that might help them at bedtime too, because then they could sing themselves a little lullaby before they go to bed. So maybe come up with a song that they could learn to sing that is their song, that when they can't suck their thumb, they can sing a song. And this should hopefully help them replace, when they get the craving, they at least start doing something with their lips and mouth so that they don't think of putting something in there. Because you also can't sing very well when you put something in your mouth. You can't talk well when you put something in your mouth. In fact, that's usually one of the things that gets parents thinking, okay, we got to be done with this. They're trying to answer me and talk to me with the thumb in their mouth. That's not okay. Habits can be annoying. And I know that parents can get annoyed with having to deal with the same habit again and again. Just remember that in order to create a new habit can take 21 consecutive successes. So this goes for food. If you want your child to learn to like a certain food, like little green peas, they're going to have to try them 21 times in order to decide that it might be okay, that peas are actually not going to kill them, and everything's fine. All right, so the same thing goes for just about any habit. So keep that in mind. You're going to have a little bit of that endurance spirit and not take it personally when you're helping them try to learn a new habit. So your calmness is vital. It's absolutely essential that you do not take that behavior personally, that you do not think that because they're still sucking their thumb and going to that somehow that means that you're failing, that they're not listening to you, or that they don't care. Don't give them that much credit because they are trying to overcome a habit. So it's not a personal thing at all. Please keep that in mind. You will want to pre-teach your child ahead of time about what you will do if they don't accept the no answer of the thumb. So maybe at first you say, for the first week, if you suck your thumb, I'm going to give you a no answer for sucking the thumb, and then you can't put it back in. If you put it back in, then I'll correct you. But if you keep it out, then there might be a positive consequence for choosing not to suck the thumb. Maybe the parent will just, randomly have, coins or candies in their pockets that they hand out to the child when they choose not to put the thumb back in their mouth after a certain period of time. And then you might do what I call an effective 3-step praise. So you show them good equals good, bad equals bad. They're learning the cause and effect. That's essential for learning self-government. So you pre-teach ahead of time what the negative will be, and hopefully you're up on some good teaching self-government negative consequences that help build character. They're non-emotional, non-manipulating, so that you can maintain that calmness when your child is getting corrected. And hopefully they learn the skill that was in that blue book that I held up a little earlier called Big Win for Quinn, which teaches the skill accepting consequences. They can learn that skill even when they're a little 2-year-old, so don't worry. They'll be fine with that. So if you pre-teach them about what skills they need, you pre-teach them about how you will correct them, you give them another habit to start developing when they want to do something with their mouth so that they can replace that old habit temporarily. And then you praise them when it goes well, correct them when it goes wrong. You will have all the pieces that you need to conquer this thumb-sucking habit. Now, I have just been talking briefly about some of these skills. There's more information that I absolutely could share with you. There's a full-length class here on this channel all about the skills of self-government that will go into more detail. And that video is called The Not-So-Known Secret for Parenting Success. So go to that video next. I'll see you there.